So we'll get going here. Okay. Good evening, everyone. You got your finger on the button there, Kristen?
Yes, we're recording, President Rentz.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular virtual meeting. It's sad that these are regular, but here we go. For January 19th, 2021, I'd like to call the meeting to order and remind everyone to either mute or turn off your cell phone or other electronic devices, and to mute your microphone if you're not talking. I'll ask Rob to do a roll call for attendance.
Thank you. Trustee Apatow.
Here.
Trustee Coladarchi.
Here.
Trustee Kripe.
Here.
Trustee Dearborn.
Here.
Trustee Swerk.
Here.
Trustee Lampier.
Here.
President Rentz.
Here. Thanks, Rob. Okay, number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Andy to lead us tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it stands,
one
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and
with
justice.
liberty, justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to item 3, which is quorum. Kristen, you want to check for quorum, or Rob, or whoever?
Sure, I'll check it. Looking at the month of February, the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th. Are there any conflicts that you may have?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Thank you. Let us know if something pops up.
Okay, item 4, public comment. Now is the time of the evening where people who wish to engage village council may do so on any item that is not on the agenda. So Kristen, go ahead and do your thing, and I'll take a nap and let me know when we're ready.
Thank you, President Rentz. So we appear to have everyone in the audience in the Zoom call participating through the Zoom platform. So right now we are checking to make sure that everyone who is in attendance now has the ability to raise their hand, and that is how we're going to recognize you during public comment. So at this time, could everyone in the attendee audience please use the raise your hand function and keep your hand raised? So I confirm that you have the ability to raise your hand when called upon.
Come on, Alex. There we go. Oh. Here we go.
Thank you.
We're good.
So at this time, I'm going to lower all hands and ask if, as President Rentz stated, is anyone in the audience, would you like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? Please raise your hand using Zoom now. Okay, I see some hands raised.
We'll start with Terry.
Okay, Terry, I'm asking you to unmute.
Sorry, it says lower hand on my screen and I was lowering my hand. So I apologize. I have no comments to make right now.
Thank you.
And Pat Balsamo has also had her hand raised. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Pat, we're asking you to unmute, so you'll need to, on your screen, allow yourself. There you go.
Can
Welcome.
you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, how's everybody? You look great. I want to send out a great thank you to Alan Berkowitz and the fire department that rescued me on the morning of the 11th of January this year, and the driver was Eric and Chris, and there was Logan and other guys who whisked me down to Evanston Hospital where I was taken care of. And, all the way down there, I thought, what a great village we live in.
How you doing, Patty? Okay?
I'm almost alive now, so we'll be
Um,
making more noise pretty soon.
We miss you, Pat.
We miss everybody.
Yeah.
Well, good to
Thank
hear
you.
from you, Pat.
Good to see you all.
Thanks.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
There appear to be no other hands raised, President Rents, and we did receive one comment in advance, but it's for an agenda item when we get to the streetscape.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, we'll move on then and close public comment, and we'll move on to reports. Trustees, anybody want to raise your hand if you've got it? I see one. Okay, Bob, go ahead.
Chris, I was just going to mention, we all received this in the mail or in our packet, this magazine, and there are a couple articles on the pension consolidation that you may want to take a look at. There's nothing earth-breaking, but it's moving along. We're probably, Rob, you tell me, we're probably looking at the middle of 2022 at the latest to have this all wrapped up. So I suspect in 2021, we're going to be notified that our time has come, if I had to guess. So anyway, a couple articles on the firefighter pension and the police pension.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to village attorney. Any report, Peter?
No report tonight, thanks.
Village manager
No report tonight. Thank you.
and village president. The only report I have is we're going to be seeing some snow, so please get out and shovel your walks if it's less than 3 inches. All right, item number 6, approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote?
I have a very basic question. Did I miss roll call today?
This is our parliamentarian. No, Rob did roll call right at the beginning.
Did you? Okay, I'm sorry. I may have, I just spaced. My old age.
No, I
Thank
got
you.
you.
So, all right, sorry, thanks.
Accounted for. Thank you.
All
Trustee.
right, thanks.
Yeah, trustee Swerk is just trying to bust me again, that's all. Okay, does any trustee wish to remove an item from the consent agenda from a separate vote? Don't see any hands. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Apatoff,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes,
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Lampier.
Yes,
Motion carries. We'll move forward. I will now ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of the village council meeting minutes for January 5th, 2021 regular meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated December 31st, 2020 through January 14th, 2021 in the amount of $657,880.21. Resolution number R6, 2021, approving a Class D liquor license for Rusticana LLC, doing business as Marco Romas, for adoption. Resolution number R7, 2021, approving a Class D liquor license for Paradise Food Italia LLC, doing business as Toco. Resolution number R9, 2021, contract for boiler blowdown header replacement at the electric plant. Resolution number R10, 2021, contract for the construction of a transformer firewall. And resolution number R11, 2021, contract for a transformer firewall installation at the Northfield substation.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
so moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes,
trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
yes,
trustee Apatow.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. We'll move forward. Item 8, ordinances and resolution. 8A, ordinance number MC1-2021, amending liquor code. This is up for introduction or adoption. Before we get going tonight, And Penny, the only reason why I'm asking this, I know you had a sensitivity to it before, pre-COVID. I am now given the option of waiving intro on every item that comes up before us. And if we don't have a problem, I won't bother going through all of the rigmarole, and we'll just move to a waive and then an adopt, if that's okay.
I would say in general, yes. You know, it's a complicated time, and particularly the ones that are related to our economic activity. I think that's I'm good to go.
Okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just
No.
think you're sensitive to it. So
Thank you. I appreciate your bringing that up.
So, okay, well, we'll move forward then. The village has received a request from a business owner with a Class E2 liquor license to sell premium liquor. Doing so will require a change in the E2 license provision. And here to review is our police chief, Mark Hornstein. Mark, good evening.
Good evening, President Rintz, Council. Nice to see everybody.
You too.
Thank you. So in December, Good Grapes reached out to us and asked what would be required for them to sell spirits. So the E2 license, does not allow for that currently. Allows for the sale of fine wine and premium imported beer. And the driver for this was customer demand and also the need for being able to compete in today's marketplace. So in reviewing the code and speaking with the village attorney, we thought the best approach with this would be to trying to amend the existing E2 license as opposed to creating another license. So in talking with the business owner and trying to understand her needs, she expressed a desire to be able to sell limited space of product in her store. This would not be something where it was going to be an expansion. It was going to be product coming in to replace existing product and not to exceed 20% of shelf space. I was assured that the primary item that's going to continue to be sold is in fact fine wine. But I think this is a nice sort of approach where it's an opportunity to help support a local business looking to remain competitive. And from a police perspective, I don't have any concerns about the amendment to the E2 license. So with that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Chief? Rob?
Hi, Chief. How are you?
Good, Trustee Appletoff. Nice to see you.
You too. How many other businesses have that E2 license that are just in the village that is just beer and champagne? And I'm just curious who else this will apply to.
Right now, this is the only one that holds an E2.
Okay. Okay. Well, it makes it a little easier, but yeah. But I mean that we're changing it for one, we change it for all, obviously. So that's that was my main question. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Penny?
Good evening. How are you? If you hear a squalling baby in the background, I apologize. I was wondering, just not necessarily relative to this particular business at this point in time, but in general, what kinds of concerns would you, as the police department, have about incorporating liquor into wine and beer sales in a neighborhood setting, or sort of a? So what would you be thinking about?
Well, I think that there's potentially a difference between a store that's selling, premium wines with limited spirits as opposed to, say, a full-blown liquor store. Mm-hmm. I would think, you probably have, and I realize I might be speculating a little bit by this, but I think the clients tend to be probably more niche for, a store like this. a liquor store obviously is going to have a much broader base of clientele versus a more focused clientele or customer base. So I think that if you start getting off into a different conversation about, just having a liquor store, that's a different conversation, of course. But for something like this, where I think this is a pretty focused customer base, I have strong confidence and good comfort level that this is not something that would be problematic to the community.
Okay, great. And so the limiting factor on this would be what, 20% of shelf space? Is that how it's defined? Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one quick question. Hypothetically, would this authorize Good Grapes to be able to sell bourbon?
So as it's defined, as far as spirits being defined in the liquor control code, which, forgive me for 1 second, I can read you every one if you'd like, but it's basically tequila, vodka, gin, scotch. The actual, okay, so the Illinois Liquor Control Act defines spirits as distillation mixed with water or other substance in solution, includes brandy, rum, whiskey, gin, or other spirituous liquors, and such liquors when rectified, blended, or otherwise mixed with alcohol or other substances.
So hopefully bourbon?
I thought you were getting at that.
I mean, and if not, can we amend the the amendment?
Does Lakeside have full booze, beer and wine and boo and hard liquor?
Yes.
And so does the Grand. Okay, all right.
And they have a different license. I mean, they have a grocery store license.
Yep.
Other questions? Okay, would we like to bring the interested party up on screen here, Kristen? Teresa, come on in.
Yes, I will. Teresa, I'm promoting you to panelist.
How come we don't get to see these people?
President Rintz, it depends on whether the participant shares their video. So Teresa, if you unmute yourself and you can choose to share your video.
Teresa?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I hit the wrong key. So first of all, thank you for having me. I would just say I consider this pretty critical to the long-term success of Good Grapes for a few reasons. One is, my top competitor closed their doors December 31st in Wilmette because they couldn't make it. Our models in terms of types of wines and beers mirror each other extensively. And the other is this is just one step of what I'm trying to do to move towards a one-stop shop, because in all my readings, whether it's in Forbes or Crain's, is that is, regardless of COVID, that is the mode of the future, is that people are becoming more selective. I've already taken down all the shelves on one wall, so it actually decreases what I could carry this on, to bring in commercial refrigerations for charcuterie board, food and items. I'm working on getting an ice in. So I think it's extremely important for me to be able to be a one-stop shop. And currently, I average turning away 25 purchases in 2020 and 2019 because I don't carry the fun little low-calorie cocktails or the hard alcohol. And I'd like to be able to stop doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Any questions for Teresa, guys? Okay, seeing none. Any comment? We'll bring it back up to council for any discussion, comments, issues, concerns. Not seeing any.
Teresa's got a great business. She keeps a beautiful store. and anything we can do to help support that, I think is great. So,
Great.
and Teresa, if you could stock some bourbon, you'll get a good customer.
Will be. It's my number, bourbon's the number one phone call I get from people out of state who want to buy a gift for someone local.
Wow.
They're all buying it for Andy, apparently.
Andy, do you want to disclose the fact that you actually already have a shelf picked out here?
Too funny. Okay.
The
We
only
got a lot of work tonight, guys.
Okay, Chris, the only question I have is couldn't be an expansion into a liquor store issue. I'm pretty sure, right? By allowing Teresa's store to expand, it's not going to suddenly become a liquor store. It's only 20% of the floor space.
That's correct.
Yeah, Trustee Coladarchi, if I may, with the 20% going to the spirits, and then within the E2 license itself, there's already another 10% restriction on the beer as well. So it's really a maximum of 30% of spirits and beer, with the other 70% being wine. So yes, it should be a safeguard to that, correct?
Okay, thank you.
And it's also 30% or 20% of display area, not floor area.
Okay, let's get this moving. Do I have a motion to waive the introduction of ordinance number MC1 2021?
I'll move.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes, sorry.
no problem. Trustee Coladarchi.
Yes.
That motion carries. Now we'll move forward. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance? Oh, wait a minute now.
No, adopt.
That's not one of my options. Oh, here it is. May I have a motion to adopt ordinance number MC1 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Coladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes,
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Apatow.
Yes.
That motion carries. Okay, good luck, Teresa, and hang in there.
thanks, Teresa. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, item 8B, resolution number R8 2021, contract for the repair of a feed water pump. In December, a contract for repairs to a boiler feed water pump was approved. Upon inspection, the repairs were determined to be more expensive than anticipated, and the project cost will be higher than the budgeted amount. So here to review is Water and Electric Director Brian Keys. Welcome aboard, Brian.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to further discuss the repair of the boiler feed water pump. As mentioned, some background for those that may be listening is the electric plant uses 3 boiler feed water pumps to supply the 4 steam boilers when we're generating. These pumps are high pressure units and they help maintain the water levels. And to make our peak output, we need all 3 of these feed water pumps in operation to support the 3 turbines via the 4 boilers. As previously discussed with the council in the summer, we started a small leak on one of the feed water pumps. The seal started leaking, and then in an October maintenance run, that condition worsened to the extent that staff recommended moving forward with the repair of the boiler feed water pump. And at the December 1st meeting in 2020, the council adopted resolution R75 2020, which authorized staff to move forward with working with a company called the Progress Group on a pump repair that was not to exceed $33,741. The contractor was able to get the required seals and mobilized on site on December 21st. And we expected this to be basically really a long day job at the plant on site. They were unable to get the seals physically removed from the plant, and we gave them permission to take the pump back to their repair facility and partially disassemble it so they could get the new seals installed. At the point when the pump was opened up, they noticed unplanned interior deterioration of the casing, so wearing of the casing. and the actual shaft itself was deteriorated to the point that they didn't believe the seals, just replacing the seals would solve the leak. So they provided, the Progress Group quoted us 2 repair options. One is what I'll call a short-term fix. It was basically as they would address the shaft, not address any of the deteriorated washout of the case as it relates to the fit to the impellers internally to the pump. It would be admittedly a very short-term fix for a total cost of $56,581. But with that, they would basically were unable to provide how long it would last. They did articulate that the condition would reappear because we still would have steam getting past the impellers, and they would not warranty the repair for any period of time. The second option was presented as an overhaul of the pump or a rebuild. This included welding the machine of the case, a new shaft, replacement wear rings, and in addition to the seals that we've already discussed. And the total cost, including the prior award, would bring the pump repair project to $158,741. They would warrant this repair for 1 year. As we go into this, I want to make sure you understand that repair cost did not include any impeller work if they got into the pump and found problems with the internal impellers. At that point in time, we halted all further work on the pump and basically retrieved the pump from their facility on January 6th for 2 reasons. One, exceeded our authority, funding authority that you had granted the village council had granted to the village manager. And 2, we wanted to get some additional data points from another repair facility. So we asked a company called Power Test out of Wisconsin. They do business as Pivotal Pump. You may not recognize the name, but they actually had bid on a previous repair at the electric plant. So they proposed taking the pump in its current state, along with the seals that we had purchased from under our contract with the Progress Group, and rebuilding the pump for $86,589. And their quotes attached in the agenda packet as attachment 1. They would, as I mentioned, reuse the seals that are the material we've already bought, and they have included impeller work in their design. If they don't need to do, in their quotation, excuse me, if they do not need to do impeller work, the repair cost is reduced by $20,320. They've got a lead time of 8 to 16 weeks, and basically it's 8 weeks if we don't have to do any repairs on the impeller, and 16 weeks if the impellers are impacted and need to be worked on. The total cost of the project is now estimated to be $112,839. This includes a liability or an expended amount of funds that we've expended $26,250 with the Progress Group under the original contract. So this labor and material that they've already put into the project, and the additional $86,589 from the quote from Pivotal Pump. This is, I mentioned, a vendor that I don't have previous experience with, so the electric plant superintendent reached out to the references. And again, that's a data point to use. What was interesting in this case, which is actually, not only did they give us investor-owned utilities in Wisconsin, they gave us the name of a nuclear power plant that they've done steam pump repair on. So that was a good data point from my perspective for them to provide, because that's a pretty rigorous entity to do work at. Pardon? Before recommending moving forward with the pump repair, I spent a little time looking at how it would impact our overall generating. So as I mentioned, this is required to get full output. And so without this pump, we're estimating a reduction of about 7.8 megawatts. So we dropped from 25.4 megawatts of output on the steam turbines to 17.6. We've been in contact with IMEA. The pump was originally not scheduled. We have to give notice when there's extended outages of the equipment, regardless of what time of the year it is, has different impacts. We didn't have an outage filed with them because it was a 1-day turnaround. They have granted us basically an extended outage or a D-rate of our generation output through May 14th, which May 15th is the start of the generating season. So for the duration of any repair through May 14th, we'll have no negative capacity credit reduction with them. When we get to if this would extend into the summer generating season, then in accordance with their existing policy, we would potentially experience some reduction of capacity credits. Just again, to kind of calibrate everybody, is on an annual basis, we get about $1.3 million for the generating units at the electric plant, which includes the 2 diesels and the 3 steam turbines. This reduction would equate to, if on an annualized basis, $374,000. The decision to repair the pump resides solely with the Village of Winnetka. It's not an IMEA decision. If we elect not to repair the pump, we would go down through a process where we take a permanent reduction of $374,000 in the capacity credits. This repair is not in the proposed budget, and it's an awkward situation to be in the first calendar month of a new fiscal year and talking about an unplanned emergent repair. So fortunately, I think I've enlisted, with the help of my staff, Giovanni. We've got off to a great start on some other projects, and we have some favorability. And we also have some recommendations for changes in the project plan to keep the expense budget on whole. Very quickly, instead of a 3-year service agreement on the software support, we would revise our recommendation at the next meeting to go with a 1-year. So at the last meeting, we did a 3-year on the water plant. And knowing that we were working on this, I pulled the electric plant item off your agenda for a future discussion, knowing that we may need those funds for an offset. In August, we were budgeting for this fiscal year, and we had a turbine header valve replacement project that was unsure if it would get completed in fiscal year 2020. So I rebudgeted for it, but we did get that work done. So there's $35,000 in the budget. You just approved the boiler blowdown line replacement where we had favorable bidding. So there's a savings of, I don't know if I'd call it savings, but a budgeted amount savings of $10,723. And under Rob's the village manager procurement authority, we've issued a replacement bid for the battery protection bank at the substation, and it came in under what we budgeted. So, and then the last one is we have some money allocated for valve and piping. So in essence, I can cover the $86,589 with what I believe is no significant impact to the expense budget. So with that though, the $26,250 that we already expended, although not invoiced, will go against the 2020 books. That contractor performed the work in December. The material was on site, so consistent with our accounting practices, that will hit the expense budget from last year, and that's why I didn't account for that in my offsets. I'm recommending because again, we did not do a formal bid process, we have to waive the formal bidding. We'd like to move forward in an expeditious manner such to try to avoid any penalties with IMEA during the summer generation if this goes in an extended period of time. And like I said, we have elected to go with another vendor in an effort to come in at a more favorable price as it relates to our budget. And with that, I'd be happy to address any questions in the approach or the situation we find ourselves in. Yes, sir. Trustee Apatow.
Hey, Brent, how are you?
Good evening. Thank you.
Good evening. First of all, music to my ears that when people have surprises, they come back and try and figure out how to make up for those surprises. So thank you very much for doing that. It shows responsible look at the budget, and we greatly appreciate that. For two things. One is, what is the cost of a new pump?
We had varying amounts. I don't have a solid number. I think it's closer to 300,000, but the problem was when we started poking at this as a replacement pump, is it would require modifications, and this is where I don't have a good number, to the existing piping structure at the plant. It's unlikely from talking to the vendor community that we'd be able to find a pump that would be a drop-in replacement. So it was going to turn into an engineering project.
I feel like the garage took apart my '67 Mustang, took the engine out and said, "Oh, by the way, here's what you need," and start paying. So I guess the group that looked at this, that gave you the original bid of $26,000, is this something they could have in any way forecast or should have forecast when they looked at this? Is this like it's got to be a pretty common, there's like, if there's a problem, it's got to be pretty common, isn't it? Should this have been a surprise is my point to them?
I think actually at this point, I think I've started to I should probably, as we position for other replacements at the plant, I should just probably come out of the gate planning for the worst, because it seems like when I touch certain things down there, it ends up with a return trip. From the vendor perspective, this vendor's performed very well for the village. They completed a recent turbine overhaul. We had some difficulty. They managed through it, very satisfactory. They actually completed work at the power plant on the diesel on about a $7,000 contract earlier this week. So I think how they handled it was fair. We had a candid discussion. They're at this point in time feel the amount of man hours that they are estimating to put into it causes them to have a higher price. We did have a candid discussion. And twofold. One is this vendor has provided a lot of technical support to the plant, has performed well. And so to, I guess, candidly say, I don't know that they could have projected what they saw without opening up. We had attempted to approach this without opening the case up.
Okay. I just always keep an eye on it. I'm glad to hear you like this. You think this vendor's been doing a good job. I just always look for anybody that has consistent surprises that you know, as long as it's not a consistent thing with them, that's fine.
Actually, this vendor, so this is kind of a deja vu moment. They stepped in a while back to take a pump from another vendor and salvage the repair process. And now they find themselves in a situation where I'm taking the pump from them to take it to another person.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Brian. That's all I have.
Well, Brian, you know, once again, as Trustee Apatow stated so clearly, you've come to the fore in terms of responsible management and sensitivity to spending and so on. And I think we all really appreciate that and frankly have come to expect that of you because you've done it over and over again. So thank you for that. We're also, I think, probably not so unsophisticated that we know the return of putting $100,000 in and getting $300,000 back. Even my math works that's a favorable, you know, equation there. So it's kind of a no-brainer. I guess my question to you is, and maybe it's in here, once this is done, what is the warranty that will be on this pump here?
Yeah, so it's going to be 1 year from the time it's commissioned and placed back in service.
Is that, I mean, for an old piece of equipment, does that give you satisfaction?
I would prefer longer, but I think dealing with the age of the equipment is I don't know that we're going to be able to get it to, and with the amount of investment we're making at this point and trying to be time sensitive about it, I don't believe that we're going to be able to get it extended longer than that.
It sort of gets back to Trustee Apatow's question, I guess, and that is, you know, we should go forward on this, obviously, but should we do a little poking around and see what it would take, you know, see what the implication is for a new piece of equipment? I mean, is there, you know, if it's $300,000 and the annual savings $300,000, I mean, even that has a pretty good return over time. Is that something you think we should look at or not?
I think the path this is brought up for me, at least with my staff, is to look at more formally looking at what to replace to put a new pump in for any one of the three, and then come up with a total dollar amount where we could have multiple people look at what we have as far as equipment and the piping, and then determine if it, through the budget process, if it makes sense for a future year plan to have that pump in the future year plan as a planned project instead of trying to do it emergently. One of the issue now is I'm already at the fringe of this May 15th generating period. If you map out that 16 weeks from when they get the contract and we get the pump in their hand, we're bumping up against that. And so we will start to lose capacity because it's not a drop off the cliff that May 15th, but we will then be in a penalty period. And so my approach was, let's get this back in service and then we can take a longer term look at all three pumps.
Good plan. Thank you.
Hey, Brian, I just had a couple of questions. I definitely think you should move forward with this work. What are the ages of the three pumps?
I don't have that off the top of my head, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry. They're all about equally sized. This one's slightly larger than the other two, but I don't think I can get you. I'm looking to see if I have a file that would have the ages right off the top.
Okay.
I mean, just generally decades.
Yes. Oh yeah, decades. That's
okay.
Question of how many decades? It's several decades.
So, you know, the funny thing is actually one of the three boiler pumps in my house went out a week ago, so I can sympathize with. It wasn't nearly as expensive, but it wasn't cheap either. My question is, have we done any testing on the performance of the other two to find out how they're, you know, how they're performing in terms of pressure. You know, I don't know if you do hydraulic pressure testing or what you do, but I imagine there's some testing you can do.
We do vibration testing and then it's visual as far as the leaks. And again, like, so if for example, it doesn't sound like you're inclined, but if, for example, you said that, you know, we weren't going to repair it, the next step in working with IMEA is we would have to do a performance test of the remaining 2 pumps and actually peg what the final output number is. So, but we're projecting it would be about an 8 megawatt reduction.
Okay. And are there signs of like the shaft getting kind of ground up that you could, I don't know, you change the oil on these things, or can you check the oil pan on these?
No, they're actually,
They're sealed?
they're sealed steam pumps. So you got high pressure steam moving through them.
Yeah.
And then to answer your question, then I did find the data set, and I don't have the dates for, I have dates for a lot of other equipment, the power plant, but I unfortunately did not have that date easily available. I can follow up if you want, Trustee Kripe.
What I would suggest is maybe just, maybe this is budget year next year, have the 3 pumps kind of on the radar and a plan that says, you know, whether we can kind of basically prioritize when the next overhaul needs to be. My personal, if we were dealing with 1 pump, I would be inclined to say, yeah, let's look at maybe doing a new one. We've got 3. And so what I'd like to see us do is come up with a plan for prioritizing the next overhaul that needs to happen. So we can get some testing and some age data and maybe just come up with some kind of, you know, and then let's just schedule it out. So we're not caught, like, let's just proactively plan on doing an overhaul, not wait for failure. But
okay,
let's have a prioritized kind of a plan. Then we don't have to worry about losing credits.
Thank you. Yep.
Cool.
Is there any other questions I could address? With that, I would ask you consider adoption of resolution R-8 2021, which would give us approval to move forward with the contract with Power Test Incorporated doing business as Pivotal Pump.
Great, thanks. We have to make sure that there's no one in the public arena who wishes to speak on this item. So Kristen, you want to go ahead and see if anybody's hand raising out there?
Yes, President Rentz, at this time, if you're in the audience and you would like to speak on this agenda item, would you please use the Zoom platform to raise your hand? I see no raised hands, President Rentz.
Okay, we'll move forward. Brian asked the question and I'll ask it again then. At this point, may I have a motion to adopt resolution number R-8 2021?
So moved. Second?
Roll call vote?
Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Kripe.
Yes.
That's great. Motion carries. Brian, you got your fixed up pump.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Brian.
Don't break
Thank you.
anything else, Brian.
Yeah,
Good evening.
Just what you always wanted.
That was splurging, yeah.
thank you.
Andy wants to know if you have some bourbon.
I want to turn that thing into a distillery. So if all those pumps break, that's fine.
He'd like the damaged impellers delivered to his front yard.
I need some type of pump like that in a distillery process, so I better work on that repair or replacement plan. Thank you, everybody. Have a good
Thank you,
evening.
Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
See you, Brian. Okay, item number 9, old business, there is none. Item number 10, new business. 10A is a public hearing for Alexandra Kaler Interior Design Special Use Permit, 928 Green Bay Road. This is for policy direction. A public hearing on the renewal of a special use permit for Kaler Interior Design has been advertised for tonight's meeting. The Village Council approved the business as a special use in November 2018, subject to an expiration date of December 31st, 2020. Tonight, we will hear public comment about the proposed renewal along with comments from the applicant. A public hearing on, well, before I say that, before I open the public hearing, I just want to say I'm somewhat embarrassed that we're bringing this poor business owner who's been operating in this village for quite a while that we're bringing her back and making her go through this again. And Alex, I apologize in advance, but evidently that's what we decided to do back in November of 2018. Why, I don't know. And we'll hopefully get you out of here quickly. So with that said, the public hearing on the renewal of the special use permit for Kaler Interior Design is now open. And David is here to summarize.
Yes, President Rintz. The applicant had come before you for special use approval. At that point in time, the applicant had occupied the space before requesting approval. There apparently had been some misunderstanding with the landlord in terms of what use is needed as special use. It was brought to the village's attention, and we approached the business owner. She submitted the special use permit application. It went before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission recommended approval. They did think it would be appropriate to have a term on the special use to see how the use operated with the other retail uses in the area. We have received no complaints regarding this business's operations. And so we are presenting their request for their renewal as required in their special use permit ordinance. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I would just say that tonight we're looking for policy direction to either renew the special use or not. And if you decide to renew it, do we want to put another term on it or just do it indefinitely, which is our typical process as we grant a special use to the applicant to occupy a space. With that, if you want, I'd be happy to answer questions now or after you hear from the applicant and the public.
Does anybody have any questions for David on this? John?
Yeah, it may be David or Peter, I'm not sure. I have no issue going forward with this. As far as the policy direction, I question the indefinitivity of the special use, or give it a date, or could we just have it run with the lease? Is that a better way to do it? So we're not, I guess it probably end with the lease anyway, but not sure how to physically put that in the document.
Well, John, I'm sorry, Peter, I'll step on you a little bit here, but I know you're not billing by the hour, so it doesn't matter.
Won't be the first time.
And won't be the last either. There's two ways you can do it, John. One is the special use runs with the space, and in the other one, it runs with the applicant. And I've noticed that it's our practice on most of the current applications that I've seen come through that our special use permits run with the applicant, if I'm not mistaken. David, is that correct? So
correct.
As long as this applicant is viable and operating in that space, it would be my suggestion to leave this poor woman alone and let her run her business rather than coming up to village council meetings. But so we can let her run with the applicant, which is typically, I think, how Peter likes to draft these ordinances. So does that answer your question?
That does, that's great, thanks.
Other questions for?
Just to be clear, it runs with the applicant in that particular space, correct? I mean, if she was to move to a different location.
To the
That
space.
is correct.
Yeah, okay, right. And my recollection is 2018 seems like a really long time ago, but I think this was a world away in terms of our policy discussion about Hubbard Woods. So right now it does seem ridiculous, but yeah. So thank you, Alexandra, for coming. Is she on the call? Yeah, you're right. It seems ridiculous right now that we would be discussing it.
Okay. Let me ask for comments from the public, because this is a public hearing and we need to hear the public. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak on this item?
President Rintz, Alex has raised her hand.
Then let's bring her in. Hi, Alex.
I'm promoting her to panelist.
Got it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't mean to override if there's anyone in the public that wanted to speak. I just was putting my hand up so that you knew that I was ready whenever you wanted me.
Sure.
Oh, there it is. So the one thing I just wanted to mention, I don't mind being here. This is, easy enough to do. And hopefully my lease is up. And so that's why I'm coming back, because I'm renewing my lease. But there was a discussion of me potentially moving my business across the street to a different available space, because there was a space that was the exact same square footage as mine available for about 30–40% less in rent. And because the savings was so significant, I was going to just move across the street. And I was told that my special use permit would not be applicable in that new space across the street. So I know that there's probably situations that are more complicated, but that is just a situation that I wanted to bring up because it was concerning that I would have to go through that process just to move, 4 doors down.
That is a really technical legal issue, and I really don't feel, I don't know. Peter, do you want to respond to that? I guess that's the nature of the beast, right? With a special use permit.
Yeah, and it doesn't require any response from you guys. I figured I would bring it up just because it seemed like there's such inconsistency in rent, and that's prohibitive for certain people. But I understand that there's more complicated situations than mine, and so you do have to reapply if you're changing addresses.
Yeah.
It's really, it is a technical legal issue because we have to provide notice a certain feet away from the property. So if you move, that notice, that circle of people who get notice changes.
I see. That makes sense.
Could I suggest something though that maybe we can kick around, if not tonight, that would avoid that? And that would be, we've had a lot of conversations about expanding which uses are prohibited as of right. We talk about the Hubbard Woods District as our design district. It seems kind of crazy that you would need a special use permit to have a design studio in Hubbard Woods. So my suggestion for the group to think about would be eliminating design studios from having to get a special if they're in the Hubbard design district.
You beat me to the punch, Andy. Certainly something we want to talk about in an upcoming study session. I thought the exact same
Go on a
thing.
walk later.
We promote this as a design district.
Here, hold on.
Am I still muted?
No, it's Jack. Jack, you're
Yeah,
not
sorry. I was just trying to find a way to stop that.
Anyway, future conversation. I agree with you totally, and I think it's valid given the way that the Hubbard Woods District is kind of developing over time into a dining and designing sort of a place. And I just walked through Hubbard Woods again today. It was really cool to see all the different interior design related spaces, furniture designers, and the shade shop, and it's really starting to get an identity up there. And certainly my thought would be that we probably should either figure out a way to have a separate overlay for Hubbard Woods that is different in definition than the overlay but that's for another conversation. I don't want to get deep into that now. But yes, thank you. Questions for Ms. Kaler or anybody else? Great. Anybody else in the audience wish to speak on this?
I see no raised hands, President Rentz.
Awesome. This public hearing is now closed. Any other comments or other thoughts from the council before I ask for a motion?
My only other comment is if we don't eliminate the hurdle on having to get a special use permit for this kind of use, Alex, and you think there's a better location, better price, you've got my vote for that one too. So if you do go through that process.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm staying put.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your store looked good this morning, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move forward then. May I have a motion to direct staff to prepare an approval ordinance for the renewal of a special use permit for Kaler Interior Design?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Lampier.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Ex-
everyone.
Excuse me, did we have to put it that, the note that there was no date limit on that? Was that part
We'll
of
see it in
the?
the ordinance.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, Alex, thank you very much.
Have a nice night.
You too.
Thanks.
That was easy. We'll move forward. Item B, Phase 3 Streetscape Contractor and Preliminary Pricing Update. This is page 130 of your packet. Since ALAM Concrete Contractors has satisfactorily completed Phase 1 and Phase 2 Streetscape, staff is requesting a waiver of bidding and awarding Phase 3 to ALAM at a contract pricing from 2019. Staff is also requesting approval to proceed with the purchase of certain streetscape elements that have long lead times for delivery. Staff providing a check-in on the project and is here to review. I read it right off the paper, but that didn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, village engineer Jim Bernal and community development David Schoen and Jody Mariano from Tesca is here to do their song and dance. And we'll start out with Jim to begin the review.
Thank you, President Rentz. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Good.
Yeah.
The number of squares got a lot more on my monitor. I'm pleased to present to you tonight an update on the Lincoln Avenue Streetscape project. To get started, I'll go ahead and outline some of the key areas of our presentation this evening. So Jody's going to start. There you go. Jody, can you go to the next slide?
Jim, are you seeing the presentation overview slide?
I am. I see the first,
Okay,
I
you
see the
want-
cover page.
That's weird.
There we go. There we go. That's good.
All right, thanks.
Sure. Okay, so so first I'll provide you a quick overview on phases 1 and 2, including some of the lessons that we learned for the future phases. Next, Jody from Tesca and Associates will provide you a more detailed presentation on the design of this year's program. After Jody's presentation, I'll provide some additional information on the funding for this year's program, along with the anticipated schedule. And then finally, we'll conclude our presentation with staff seeking direction from the council on waiving the bidding process and allowing staff to move forward with the current contractor on developing the final contract, which we will bring back to you on February 16th. And then finally, staff will be seeking approval from the council to move forward with the purchase of some of the longer lead time items. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first, just a quick overview on the Streetscape program itself. As you may recall, in July of 2019, the village began construction on phase 1 of the Streetscape project. It seems so long ago, but it really wasn't. Due to seasonal constraints, work was temporarily suspended in December of that same year. And then as the village evaluated on how best to move forward with the next phase of the Streetscape improvements, a proposal was requested from the awarded contractor to construct phase 2. The reasoning for this was because the work was contiguous and it involved substantial coordination that would have been required for both the 2 phases. In addition to this, the contractor also agreed to maintain their competitively bid prices from 2019. So based on these reasons, the council approved a change order in the early part of 2020 to include the phase 2 work as part of the original phase 1 contract. By maintaining the originally competitively bid prices, this allowed the village to complete both phases of the work under the original budget amount, thus creating an overall savings for the village at the end. Due to the unfortunate events of the recent pandemic, the village opted to move forward sooner than anticipated with the construction of phase 2. As you may recall, the work for phase 2 began in late March of 2020. We were fortunate enough to have some good weather. The goal was to minimize the impacts to the surrounding business community, most of which had opted to temporarily close, unfortunately, due to the mandated stay-at-home requirements from the state. By beginning sooner, this allowed for the substantial completion of the work in June of 2020. Due to the feedback received by the local businesses and residents, the extra effort to complete the work early was very much appreciated. With the completion of the work early, this also allowed residents and visitors to the area to enjoy the many improvements of the project, including such things as the enlarged gathering spaces and the improved overall landscaping. During the construction and after its completion, the design team met and we evaluated the lessons learned excuse me, from the successful completion of the first 2 phases. Lessons learned came from not only feedback that we received, but also from the contractor on how we can improve upon the design and the sequence of the construction. So here in front of you is some of the lessons learned as part of the first 2. And this involved around some tree preservation, the overall lighting design. We heard comments about that, the timing of the construction, most of it very positive about starting earlier in the year so we could get finished earlier in the year and people could really enjoy what we had. There was comments about the coordination of the water service enhancement with the businesses. As you may recall, we had coordinated with one of the businesses on improving their fire suppression system on Chestnut Street. So there was a lot of positive feedback about helping out with that. Also, the purchase of the long lead time items early. This minimized the amount of time it took us to get started. During the first phase, you may recall there was a slight delay when we had gotten the tree grades. It took much longer than we thought, and so we had to gap a lot of long areas. On the second phase, they came much sooner and we were able to embed them in the concrete and have a nice finished look to it right away. And then of course, the contractor's familiarity, with the village's expectation and the design. This really helped to expedite the process because they were familiar with what our expectations were. It was a much smoother process. Jody from Tesco was involved on site. We had the ability to coordinate with the contractor, and that process went a lot smoother. And the final product was we felt really at the expectations we were looking for. So by learning from the past, the design team was able to better design and prepare the next phase of the streetscape project. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Jody now, and Jody will walk you through the design that we have for the next phase.
And members of the council, thank you for having me tonight. So to follow up on Jim's comments, I'm going to take you through a series of slides that are also in your packets. This is the existing conditions and tree protection plan. So as you all know, existing conditions include some mismatched and failing pavements in the corridor, some trees that are in need of replacement, several ADA issues that we want to address to make this attractive and safe for pedestrians and cars and bikers to use as well. We do have some areas that have pre-existing donor bricks, and those are in this area here near where Little Ricky's used to be, close to the bridge area. And those areas have been documented, all of those paver bricks. There's over 1,000 names. But there will be recognition and a tastefully designed sign to be provided close to, but not within this corridor area. We also found an opportunity to narrow the street 12 inches and widen the sidewalks by 6 inches on each side. And what this does is it provides better pedestrian access and space for outdoor seating and dining, but in addition, it protects the trees. And so by thinking about those things ahead of time, working with Andrew in the forestry department, we were able to develop a tree protection plan that protects 17 trees. There's 1 tree that would be transplanted off-site. It's a very small ginkgo tree, and then 9 trees that would be removed. So those trees are shown here. The trees to be removed are generally some poor condition trees or poor quality trees rather, and those would be the ash and the silver maple. There are also a couple of elms and honey locust trees that would need to be removed based on their condition and the forester's evaluation. So as you might recall, This information was presented to the EFC in September. And thank you to the trustees for walking with me back in the fall to look at these things in more detail. With that, I'm going to move to the next slide, which is the lighting plan. So we do have 3 lighting types, just like we did on the west side. Down at the bottom of your screen, you can see we've got the vehicular scale light pole. And there is only one of those planned for this corridor, and that's here near where the Little Ricky's restaurant used to be. The rest of the lighting are pedestrian light poles. And they're all spaced here throughout the corridor. And then we have the lighted bollards located at these bump out areas here with those small little yellow circles. Generally, just like we did on the west side, the lighting is designed to meet the lighting standards and safety for public places. One of the things that we focused really closely on after thinking about the trees was to work closely with our engineer to develop a lighting plan that works around those existing trees. So just for information, the trees that are shown on this slide, the lightly colored trees are existing trees to be protected, and the dark colored trees are new trees. So you see we've got the proposed lights sort of spaced within existing trees. We meet standards for proper offsets from those existing trees. One thing I want to point out with the lighting is that unlike what we did on the west side, Lincoln Avenue is a wider street. We've got diagonal parking on both sides of the road. So we have more roadway to light. And so that also gets factored into the photometric plan. I will mention that unlike what we did on the west side, the lighting here on Lincoln Avenue will be going in with mature existing trees and new trees. So right off the bat, we're going to have lighting that's filtered by the existing tree canopies. Regarding the site furnishings, so we've got these standard furnishings that we've used on the west side. We're incorporating the same furnishings here on Lincoln Avenue, although with a different set of design standards and criteria, we're using these in slightly different ways. We've got these opportunities where these bump outs exist or are planned to occur at the alleys. These bump outs are great locations for planter pots at the noses, just like we did on Chestnut Street, and then bike racks. So we've got additional bike parking here. We heard one of the pieces of feedback was that so many people are biking, which is great news, but we want to make sure we accommodate more bike parking for them. So bike parking and planter pots, trash and recycling bins are also generally located in these noses. And then I'm going to talk about this area to the south in an enlargement slide here in a moment. Proposed tree planting. So again, all of the lightly colored trees here are existing trees to be protected. All the darkly rendered trees are proposed new trees. So the tree species that are planned for this corridor are shown here at the bottom of my screen. I'm trying to move all of your faces out of the way so I can read this, but we've got Estate Street and Miyabi Maple, and those are located here. This is like the gateway to that. These trees are, and also the tree down here, which is planned to be a hackberry. These 3 trees would be placed in open planters. And so therefore we can get much larger trees. So these are specified to be 5-inch caliper trees, so much larger than what the 3-inch standard size is. The other trees that are specified in the sidewalk areas include the Princeton Century Ginkgo tree and the Regal Prince Oak tree. Again, trees that have been specified elsewhere. These would be 3-inch caliper. They would be installed in tree grates. Generally, we've got trees installed in tree grates when we're in the sidewalk area. We've got trees and planters in these southern intersection areas where we have existing trees that are fairly large, such as this area here at the northeast. These would not have tree grates. They would just be tree pits because we've got such a large root flare. It doesn't make sense to get a tree grate around it. So back to this area here at Lincoln and Elm. This is what we call sort of our special place. This intersection really is kind of a 100% corner for this corridor here. And here at the intersection enlargement, we have been lucky enough to review some of the proposals by the new restaurants and to coordinate with them to make sure that we're accommodating their outdoor seating and dining. We've come up with a couple of things that we think can provide flexible seating and also accommodate the dining. And so what we're showing here is a masonry seat wall combined with a curb planter. So I'll trace it out what it looks like, but this area here, this large planter, for instance, would have a masonry seat wall on 3 sides. Masonry seat wall is photographed here. This is from one of your US post office lot. On the back side of the seat wall would be a low curb, similar to the low curbs that we have elsewhere. What these do is it provides places for people to sit. If the restaurants wanted to pull up the tables and chairs to the seat wall to provide places to sit that way, that would work too, but it's intended to be very flexible. So this arrangement of seat wall with curb is shown at this location here is the first location, location number 2, and then location number 3. For both locations, we've got opportunities for the restaurants to have their seating and dining against the building face as they wanted to. Also additional opportunities for seating throughout the paved area. Against the curb, we show additional bike parking. These are the lights. And then here at the curved section of the intersection, just like we did on the west side, would be lighted bollards and planter pots to kind of, provide some additional buffering and guide pedestrians to walk in the crosswalk area. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Jim.
Come off of mute. Okay, thank you, Jody. So next, I'm going to talk briefly here about the budget for this year's program. So as you can see on the slide, or as you may recall from the budget, it wasn't that long ago, the village, as part of the Downtown Revitalization Fund, has budgeted a total of $1.32 million for the streetscape improvements. Included with the streetscape improvements is also the replacement of an existing 20-inch water main that runs primarily along the western side of Lincoln Avenue. Based on the condition of the existing main and an effort to coordinate with the local businesses to help improve their existing water services or opportunities for potential fire suppression system updates, it's important that this work be performed now. So by doing this now, this will eliminate also the need to disturb any of the new streetscape improvements in the future to the business. Should the businesses wish to undertake improvements within their building now, they would also see a potential cost savings here, as the village is going to be performing most of the restoration work. So it's really in their best interest to try to work with us as we start to do it. We will be making efforts to reach out to these folks and let them know of the opportunity for some cost savings for them and to help them with that program. So the design of the water main is currently being finalized by the design engineer, and this work is being proposed to be part of the annual street rehabilitation program. So next, we're going to talk here, Joe, if you could switch the slide, we're going to talk a little bit here about the schedule for the project. So as you can see, we're here tonight seeking the authorization to move forward with waiving the bidding process and move forward with purchasing some of the long lead time items. Staff is anticipating coming back at the February 2nd meeting. We'll be looking to authorize the agreement for the proposed water main work as part of the annual street rehab program. So that'll all come back on the 2nd. And then on the 16th, we're hoping to bring back the final contract here for the streetscape project for the construction service with the contractor. And then also look to award a contract for the streetscape signage construction with Parvin Kloss Sign Company. They've helped us out with some of the street signs. All things moving ahead in good order. On March 15th, weather permitting, we'll be looking to start construction as quickly as we can. If we're able to get the water main components sooner, we will be looking forward to moving as quickly as I can with that, as I want to do that first. So that work is completed so we can focus right away on all the hardscape and the sidewalk stuff. All things moving along based on our schedule, we would hope, weather permitting again, if the weather starts to warm here, on us that the week of the 24th, we can start doing the landscaping activities similar to what we did this year as part of phase 2. And then we'd be looking to have substantial completion of all the work activities around June 7th. So it's a similar schedule to what we did on the phase 2, but we think it's achievable. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and stop just for a second to see if anybody has any questions about any of the items that we've talked about so far. Trustee Apatow? I see one hand. Sorry.
Yeah.
Rob, go ahead.
That's great. Thanks, Jim. This overall, you guys have done a very nice job pulling this together. You really addressed the discussion on the trees, and you put a lot of time and care into it. So I'm excited to get this going. But a couple things that we talked about on our walkthrough. One is the lights, and I understand very clearly what type of coverage we believe we need, but I count at least 21 major lights on the street in the kind of runway pattern, which I've received feedback, and I know others have as well, that it looks like, kind of a O'Hare Airport runway with the versus where the way it used to be. I'm not sure how many lights are on the street now, but I can assure it's not 21, but where it used to be staggered, or something else a little more like a township or a village versus a city. So that's and the number of bollards that are on the street corner. I know there's been a lot of heat upon. I know we did them, which makes it a lot better, but why are we putting so many on there again? I guess so. I think the design of the lights is great. I think I like the look of them. I just think there are too many. I think the way you've kind of done them as a runway versus staggered, more of a small village effect, still concerns me. So that's first. Second, we talked about narrowing the streets in our walkthrough. I know it's 12 inches, and I've gone and taken pictures of a bunch of other streets, including I was in Lake Geneva, and even when we narrow the streets, I guess I'm concerned or questioning letting the people put up signs and things that are on the main sidewalk walkway versus toward the curb, because you can't really use it's a kind of an issue when people have baby carriages. If the main walkway of the sidewalk is blocked, it becomes an issue versus putting the tables out, because on the outside side of the curb, you got signs blocking the walkway. You have trees already blocking the walkway. So like even in places like Lake Geneva and other townships like Lake Forest, you have the tables that are more closer to the curb, so the main sidewalk remains open. Because right now it's because of the trees and the other signs, you can't walk close on the regular sidewalk, and you can't walk on the far side. You have to keep dodging in and out. So I guess that's something I'd like to understand better about traffic flow, because others and just having that clear sidewalk walkway seems to be a much better way to do it. Three, and finally, the bike parking. I'm a big fan of having bike parking. I'm not sure if we consider maybe using a parking space that's just off the main sidewalk, so you don't have bikes littered all over the sidewalks and in the very limited walkways that we have. So those are the three things I still have concerns about. Otherwise, I'm gung-ho, ready to go. But I brought all these up before, and I don't know, it doesn't seem like they were addressed.
Sure. So Jody, why don't I'll address the light one, and then I'll let you address the other ones. So the light fixtures, as Jody mentioned, what we did was we took a look at the photometric plan, which is what Jody has up on here, to ensure that we are meeting all the requirements. As Jody mentioned, we have some more mature trees on the site. That's really going to make this a different appearance, as I think what was seen on the west side, where we had smaller trees when we had removed what was there, and the street was much narrower. So this is really going to, it's going to be a different appearance. The light's going to be a lot dimmer. As we did part of the design, as you may recall, currently, and at the northwest, where Little Ricky's is, and at the northeast corner, there was two tall roadway, the taller roadway lights, which provide a much more big footprint. So as part of this design, we actually removed one. So we removed the roadway light at the northeast corner and are still meeting requirements for pedestrian and vehicular traffic. So we actually reduced the foot candle from what's out there now. The LED bollards are again aesthetic, and the pedestrian lights provide that lower candle footprint. So we think what we're meeting for here is going to provide that different look, but still meet the requirements that we have to have for safety. I don't think it's going to be the same appearance as what we saw on the west side.
But you still have 7 bollard lights on one corner, looks like.
Correct.
And I'm not arguing with I like the lights. I like the look of the lights. I just think there's still, I just question 21 lights on a block. There's probably 7 right now, or 8.
Penny, you're gonna have to wait until we get through Rob's questions, Penny.
No, that's fine. I can't see anything, so I can't see anybody else, and I can't see any of the light plans because I don't think it was included in our packet. So, where?
She had them up before. You can put the light plan back.
Thank you.
Right
Thank
there.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was what I was going to.
This is like a runway light in effect versus a staggered village. Light.
Hey, Rob. Let's speak to the other issues. Jody, go ahead.
Sure. Well, since I just pulled this up because I wanted to clarify where the bollard lights are placed. So at this corner here, we've got bollard lights 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at one side, 1, 2, 3 here where Little Ricky's was, and then 1, 2, 3 here at the north end. The lights, we hear you. I think the challenge is that the village selected is working with a generally lower scale light. So when we have lights that are relatively shorter, they only spread so far along. And working with the existing trees, if we were to stagger them, we would have a bunch of dark spots, which compromises the safety concerns. And so this is just a diagram, of course, but having the photometric plan, which I'm going to try and get to here. Can everyone see that photometric plan?
That's not the photometric.
I think it's taking a while to get to you guys.
There you go. Yep.
It happens faster in Highland Park, I guess. But you can see the blue lines of this photometric. This identifies the outline of generally the lighting that we're trying to achieve. So if we were to offset it, we'd be concerned about having more dark spots. Just as Jim said, though, this would be placed along mature trees, and so we would have more filtering effects. I do want to get to the other questions too. I
Hold on. Just one sec. Penny,
yeah.
can you see the photometric drawing, Penny?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so there were 2 other comments that Trustee Apatow mentioned. One is about narrowing streets and making sure we have clear zones for tables and chairs. And then the second item was the question about bike parking. So as far as the clear zones go, let me get back to this. So in the streetscape plan, we absolutely always need to maintain at least 6 foot is our standard for minimum clear zone. As far as we're out, can you hear me now?
No.
Yeah. Better.
Yes?
Yes.
There you go.
We got to get back to in person.
Yes.
Okay. So based on, and staff can confirm all of this, but the outdoor dining is a special use permit. I think I understand when the business owner wants to have outdoor dining. And so in working with Hometown Coffee and Juice, we understood this was, and so the streetscape really is just flexible to accommodate that there should always be 6 foot of space for a clear walking zone. In this case, it would be between the tables and chairs and the next set of streetscape elements, which in this case would be a planter. Elsewhere along the corridor, there is intended to be clear walls close to the building facade. Ideally, we've got between parked cars and the sidewalks. So we like to keep as much space clear and open for those cross movements to happen and keep people walking safely along the building face. That said, businesses might always want to, throw out a couple of tables and chairs. And I think that there is a process in the village's inner workings that would permit those types of things to happen, so long as we maintain 6 foot clear walking distance if those tables and chairs were out there.
Right. Let me jump in to complement what Jody was saying. The expanded corners, 100% corners there with their design will better accommodate outdoor dining than what's there today. But every year for outdoor dining, a restaurant has to submit an outdoor dining permit request, and then it's reviewed and approved so that we do have clear pedestrian paths around the outdoor dining. Now, do those move around? Yes, and we do monitor them throughout the course of the year. It's something we'll have to keep a close eye on, but we do review them and then have them, the diagram is on file so that we can go out and check them periodically.
Thanks, Rob.
And Chris, Rob, you know what I meant by that, don't you? Because if you look where all the other stuff is, the planters, and you already had that area being blocked, so you can't walk through the lights, the other stuff. And having the best practice is having the tables out toward the cars and having the walkway here.
Yeah, so one example of that was Cafe Aroma, when they were in business, had their design, and Stacked and Folded was actually closer to the curb line so that people could get through because of the way the sidewalk was configured. Those are the types of things that we take into consideration at each location.
So I'm going to address the other question, which had to do with bike parking. And I'm going to zoom in here just to kind of show this a little bit more closely.
As you're zooming in, Jody, I want to remind Rob that
see that
Village Council in a previous iteration, and many of the people who are sitting in this Zoom right now, elected to remove quite a few of the original bump outs because we wanted to preserve parking. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want to save the parking, we can't do the bump outs, which I liked, but caved on. So that's part of the issue too, is, we're really forced to deal with what we have because council in general did not want to see bump outs on the parking lanes.
Okay.
Well, and I think just to kind of piggyback off of that good comment, out there today next to the alleyways, these spaces today are painted. They're not parking spaces because they're not big enough for a parking space. They're not really big enough for anything else, but in creating these bump outs, these do several things. One, they provide a lot of traffic calming. So when the roadway gets squeezed a little bit narrower, cars move a little bit slower, more pedestrian friendly. These are the places that we're honing in on. For in there, it's not appropriate for them, but here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a 5-pack of bikes here, 2 bikes in this one. As I move to the north, we've got 3 bikes in this one, and then we've got another 5 or so bikes in this one. So we're trying to incorporate as many bikes and trash receptacles as we can, but generally we don't want trash receptacles near where people are sitting. You like to have them sort of out of the way. The same with the bike parking.
Yeah, I guess I was hoping
Does
to get.
that answer the question?
Not really, because I was hoping to get more tables or something more useful. I guess I put bike parking in a couple different areas. I wouldn't put them. I guess as I look at best practice, how people do it, if somebody's riding a bike, I think they can walk another 12 steps, but that space is so valuable. I don't know if I want to, is it best to be taken up with tables for dining or bikes where people can walk an extra 12 steps and leave that space open for us or for other uses. I just don't know if putting bike spaces all through those is the right way to go versus tables or something else.
Sure. And so they're not just bikes. I mean, I kind of Yeah, and so the tables, of course, would, happen where there are adjacent restaurants that want to use tables. I don't know that those occur here. There's a realtor here and this is near a parking lot. A lot of these bump outs are kind of small for tables and proper seating because we want to make sure we get good circulation around. We have a handicap ramp to get in. We did manage to squeeze in a couple of benches in this little bump out here because we felt that that was appropriate given the
Can't hear you.
land uses.
Tony, we can't hear you.
But where we have these really narrow little spaces, can't hear me again. We
So
better now?
can I cut in for a minute, please? We've had this issue before when we've had too many people sharing their video at once. So I'm going to ask David to stop sharing his video, Andrew to stop sharing his video. And then there'll be less competition for Jody's bandwidth. So Jody, can you try speaking now?
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Better.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kristen. I don't know how much you heard before, but what I was alluding to is that these bump outs are very small spaces. And so what we want to do is make sure that they're buffered well by having planter pots like we did on the west side. Not really a lot of space for tables and chairs with the circulation needed to get around them, but we did manage to fit a couple of benches in this little bump out here at this location. Otherwise, we're concentrating our seating and our plantings with the trees along the corridor, and then also, this 100% corner at the intersection.
John.
Sure, thanks. Hey, Jody, and thanks for doing everything that you've been doing. Taking the tree walk with us and the trustees, that helped a lot to address, what trees are conserved, the condition of trees, which also goes ahead with how you locate your lighting. The lighting study looks good, and I know what Robert's trying to avoid by having it look like a runway, but with them being, for one, spaced with a lot of existing trees, it's not gonna be as obvious from day one. And with the amount of lights we need for the spacing, there may be 20, 25 feet apart, I'm guessing. So if you were to shift one side 10 or 12 feet, so it doesn't look like they line up like a runway, I don't think it's gonna look any different because they're about 20, 25 feet maybe or more, 40.
They're like 50 feet apart.
Okay, so if you spaced them, shifted one of them 25 feet over, I don't think you'll notice a difference with all the trees. And then if you do move them over, you really do need a taller light, well, to get the proper coverage probably. And then if you do shift one over, you're gonna pick up another light or two at the end because your spacing won't be the same. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think I'm okay with the lighting. Rob did mention, and I do agree that the bollard lighting, we've learned in phase 1 or 2 that, we toned those down a little bit. That worked out great. On your trees, I'm not a landscape architect, but you have that prime oak, and the picture you showed looks like there's branches all the way to the ground. I'm assuming that would be trimmed up, or is that meant to be that way?
You're talking about this one here, the Regal Prince Oak?
Yeah, is that
Yeah,
always?
so, no, it won't, I can default to Andrew here, but it would not come out of the nursery that way, and anything that's lower branch would be limbed up. I think
Okay.
we have one specified on the west side.
Yeah,
on
okay, that's fine.
Yeah, there's a high branched and a low branched variety of that tree. And actually we planted some of those in the earlier phases last year, the high branch variety, and those are the same ones that we'll be planting over here. So they won't go all the way to the ground.
Okay. And then we've talked about this many times and we're past that bridge, but the amount of sidewalk space, with the trees being now back in the sidewalks like they have been in other phases, the parking, the street width, is that the barest minimum width you can have on the street for the two directions?
So yes, we have auto turn diagrams that the engineer provided to us, but taking out 12 inches of the roadway, giving 6 inches to each side of the sidewalk was what the engineer felt most comfortable with, given the design vehicle they were designing for.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. Then I got a question for Jim, if now is appropriate or just wait.
Yes, now is the time for council
Perfect.
questions.
Okay,
to our
so I know we had the budget, I forget the exact number, 1.3 million or something.
Mhm.
With the changes that we've been doing, including a little bigger bump out along Elm on the east side, are those budgets still realistic, or do we have to be looked at, or how close do we think we are?
Yes, they are. We are still within budget.
Okay, great.
One of the things that I neglected to mention, but talking about budget, something that's pretty costly from the previous phases is the structural soil that's put in with the new trees. Since we're preserving trees, we're not putting in structural soil around those trees, of course. So we're limiting our structural soil to only the new trees. That has been one budget saver for us.
Great. I think that's all I have. Let's start construction.
Trustee Swerk, in addition to the overall revenue line, we're accounting for a $300,000 grant from Senator Fine, which we're really hoping will be booked this year.
Okay, great, thanks.
Other questions? Penny?
Thank you. You've answered a number of my questions, but relative to the bollards, I still, my concern is that the two sides look really unbalanced because you said what, there are 7 on the east side and how many, 4 on the west side, that coming around that curve.
5 and 3, Penny.
Yeah, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the east side and 1, 2, 3 on the west side. And the imbalance really has to do with, this is not a 100% 90-degree intersection. And so the geometry of the curb is a little bit different. So that's kind of what we're working with.
I understand, but it's just having the four bollards on the west side. I was not at all aesthetically satisfied with the way it looks in the West Elm district. And I'm just, if we could take one of the bollards out on the east side, on that wide curb. I mean, that might not be photometrically absolutely the best, but it to me, it just jars every time I see it because it's so imbalanced.
Can I ask you a
Sure,
question?
as far I can speak to the photometric. The photometric has nothing to do with the bollards. The bollards are purely just aesthetic. So if we wanted to omit a bollard and space the planters around better, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my suggestion. I think it would look a little more balanced. It's just, it's such a strange thing in terms of, what your eye likes and doesn't like. And I can't exactly give you a rational reason, but every time I see it, it's like, ooh, so.
Penny, I've thought a lot about your concern with the asymmetrical layout, and
Right.
initially it bothered me a lot. But I have taken the opportunity, and I really invite all of you to do this because I've become a believer to a certain degree. I invite everybody who hasn't done so yet to go out in an evening. I did this again last evening, so my experience would be fresh for this evening. And sit on that stone, that seat wall that we have next to the post office parking lot in the evening with the planters now planted, and sit on the wall. And the amazing thing is that when you have this combination of bollards and planters, that whole area becomes really safe and protected and comforting. It's amazing. I would love you to sit there and just look at it from the inside, because the experience from the inside is way, way different than somebody driving by. And it really
I
is
totally
a
hear
challenge.
you. I mean, I understand that from a design standpoint, and I'm not saying take out a lot. I'm just asking to think about one, just to make it not quite so imbalanced, because I agree with you in terms of sort of the plaza effect, but you know, how we experience it is, you know, from the drive-by too. So I totally hear you, Chris. Unfortunately, I'm a little too far away and I can't experience it right now, but
Shame on you for not doing it sooner.
yeah, that's my suggestion. And I have, you know, I mean, I walk that corner all the time.
But sitting there, you know, I could actually picture a summertime musician standing back to bollards, people sitting in the benches and along the seat wall there. And it's a completely protected little room almost
right
there on the corner. And it really, you know, Jody, thumbs up, because I didn't buy into it until I actually experienced it as a pedestrian. And I can see exactly what's going on here when you're thinking of, you know, the amount of people that'll be gathering, particularly at the hometown corner, that makes it more safe and a little bit more of a closed area, and very comforting and relaxing to be in that area. No, I'm not asking you to walk off your request to take away a light, but I'm just saying you need to experience it physically.
No, Chris, again, I totally understand. I think that I'm just asking to think about it relative to balancing how everybody experiences it, because from an aesthetic standpoint, in terms of sitting in there, absolutely. But I think we need to balance it in terms of how people look at it and see it. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. I would love to have an alternative that we could consider.
You know, let me ask Penny one more question to drill in.
Yes, sir.
What if the Phototronics corner ended up looking similar to this?
Well, you know what I mean? I think I really like, I think it's an improvement on the West Elm to be putting the seat walls along those trees, because people are walking across there anywhere. So I think that solves two problems, provides more seating, and it keeps people from walking across the tree, the tree things. You know what? I think that the combination, again, of the lighting and the planters provides that nice, you know, that nice edging for those spaces. I'm wondering if there's an alternative way we could do it. And because I agree with you, it's really nice to provide that edge that separates that space from the street for a number of reasons. So I do like that. And I think it would be great if the Phototronics corner had a similar thing.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
I feel like
Hey,
I
Chris,
should
if I could
also-
put my, go ahead, sorry.
If I could just quickly point out, I think exactly what President Rent said as far as making that room. But if we poke too many holes in this little wall that we're creating with planters and bollards, the pedestrian walk space starts to get a little bit changed. I mean, we're really trying to guide people to only walk at the crosswalks. And so once we start opening this up in here, then we open ourselves up to people crossing that way.
You know, and I agree with that, because I like blocking that off, but I don't know if there is, you know, an alternative to the spacing in terms of, I mean, I don't know if that's the only way you can do it, or whether you could do one fewer bollard and adjust it a little bit. You know, because you've got it going on the other side of the street, that it's done a little differently. So
and yeah, the other side of the street is so different just because we have a smaller space to fill. It's not a symmetrical intersection, but completely understand what you're getting at.
If I could put my 2 cents in.
Go ahead, John.
I know you're trying to make it symmetrical, but if you're really trying to make it symmetrical, you would probably, on the west side, you would probably maybe typically put a bollard on each side of the crosswalk. So in that case, you're adding a bollard maybe on the west side.
well, I don't think
Well,
I don't think we need more lights. I just think
I know,
that
I'm just trying to
there's-
say, if you're trying to get symmetrical though.
I'm not
you're
trying to make it symmetrical. It's just that it's overwhelming in terms of the asymmetry.
Well, then Okay. But anyway, if you're trying to make it, you just mentioned asymmetrical. If you actually had 4 bollards on the west side with only 1 planter in the middle, and then each side of the, then at that point, each side of the crosswalk on the east side, though, you probably wouldn't have one. So the asymmetrical, you got 3 times almost the amount of radius lineal footage of curb. So I'm okay with the way it's laid out. If anything, I would add 1 more on the west side, but we don't need to go there.
I'm not going to die on this hill, so whatever.
Other questions?
Hey, Chris, can I just weigh in here a little bit? First off,
Well, Bob,
Jody and
remember, we're at the staff questions part of the.
I understand.
Not deliberating.
Andrew did a great job. I appreciated the work on the trees, Jody walking, Jim, and so on and so forth. I think we made a lot of progress on that. If we're on the bollards, I want to say I agree with Penny. And Jody seems to be saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jody, that you could go to 4 versus 5, and in your opinion, not compromise much.
I didn't hear that.
Jody, can you weigh in on that, please?
I can clarify that. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I was responding to, Penny was asking about the photometrics, and I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the photometrics and the bollards have nothing to do with one another. The lighted bollards are primarily aesthetic. That said, yes, if we wanted to, so the planters are sort of an oblong shape. If we wanted to adjust the way that the planters are set and reduce a bollard, we could certainly look at that. I mean, I think we have an objective.
Yeah, Jody, just to jump in with some of that, one thing we can look at, there's 4 LED bollards that are at that the northeast corner there that we're talking about. Maybe we look at adding an additional, we can take a look at it, but what if we added an additional planter pot and went planter pot, LED bollard, and then you have 4 planter pots and 3 LEDs. Sort of, we take the chain and we just sort of tweak it just a little bit. We can take a look at it though.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways to set it up. I think all I was, saying is that I think we all have the same objective, that we want to make sure this has a proper edge, that it looks good, that it makes people feel protected and safe to cross. There's so many ways that we could skin this cat. So
Sure.
Yeah, I got to say, it's good that we're getting to a point where we're talking about a bollard or 2. I mean, this is a better kind of conversation to have.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Well, Chris, I guess I'm a little confused. Maybe I wasn't hearing it right, or I'm trying not to hear what I want to hear because I'm trying to be open-minded about this, about the photometric.
Rob, I don't think changing the street light layout is going to happen.
Why is that?
Because
I thought what we said here, we learned something about the lights. That was on the first slide, that we learned about lighting from the last thing, and that the lighting was the runway effect of instead of looks like a city versus a village, even though city doesn't have any lights.
Well, but Rob, that's pretty subjective statements, and I don't think that it's widely shared in the community or on the council level. So I understand, and I hear what you're saying, and I have since the moment you brought it up last summer, and I've been thinking about it and looking about it constantly. But we are in the middle of a planned project that needs to have a certain uniformity to it in order to tie these business districts together and to make a clear and concise architectural statement about our downtown. And
I'm well aware of that.
And so when you start changing lighting patterns and bollard heights, or not bollard heights, but street lighting heights, and changing the intensity so that we keep out of court relative to running afoul of engineering standards, we get into a lot of trouble. I will say that, at this point, this has been vetted over a 12-year period. It's been vetted by a committee that was put together by my predecessor and ran through my first years of service. It's been to council multiple times, and this is the plan that council and that committee which consisted of Scott.
Yeah, I've spoken with all of them.
On that committee, and we put our
With all of
trust in those people to bring forth a plan that we could all get behind. And for a brief moment in time, everybody was behind it, and we moved forward. I don't think the
I
light
think we
is
are
open for further conversation at this point.
Well,
I
Chris,
might be able
I'm
to help.
sorry. I
I
think
might
we
be
are
able to
moving
help.
forward.
Can you give me 1 minute to explain the photometric real quick? If you look at the photometric on the screen, if you start at the upper right-hand corner, which is the northwest side right there, you got the light pole right at the start of the first parking space. If we decide to shift that first pole halfway to the left, for one, we hit the existing tree. And then in order to cover that corner, you have to add another light on the far north side of that island to cover the same amount of lighting. And if you take that same thinking, the second light down as you go south, that one's going to come down and cover that second tree on the left. But then the next pole is going to hit another tree. So I think they've done a really good study of interlacing these with existing trees and having some kind of a pattern.
Yeah, no, I mean, just to be clear, guys, and I appreciate that, John. I am not looking to reinvent the wheel. I thought I had discussions, they were never really answered. So unfortunately, we have to answer them during this forum.
Okay.
And I'd be remiss if the lights and some of the feedback I've gotten from the village and from residents was not answered. One was the bollards was like it felt to people like not like a village anymore. It was too bright. And I love the lights. I love the look of them. I just thought there was too many and they should have been staggered. If the council doesn't want to do that, I'm all for going ahead with this. Don't get me wrong. I feel remiss not bringing this up, and I felt remiss not bringing up the narrowing because you have a two-way street and we're narrowing it. And if you've been there and you've seen the size of the cars that are backing up into that street, I know people think it will calm the traffic. I just want to make sure that a village engineer, that we are not creating another problem if we're looking at safety. And so if we are 100% certain that narrowing will not affect traffic and people running into each other, let's go forward. I'm with you. But it wasn't really answered other than an engineer looked at it.
Yeah, so currently on Lincoln Avenue now, even prior to the widening, based on the parking stalls, the number of parking stalls we have, when vehicles back out, they cross that center line. That's also part of the traffic calming that takes place within that corridor. This actually maintains the exact same premise of it. You're still going to have the crossing of the area. You'd have to have a substantially wider, much wider street to have traffic movements where it would not cross a centerline part. But we don't have that here. That's part of the uniqueness of this downtown area, is those narrow roads for it. So it's consistent with what we have. It meets safety standards for it. So I'm confident that what we're doing is fine.
Okay.
Can you all see the auto turn diagram? I've just popped up on the screen.
Yeah.
Which Jim was talking about is illustrated here. So this demonstrates how a vehicle would make those turning movements, backing in and out.
Say, Chris, have we moved on to discussion now?
It feels like it. I wanted to get the public input on this at some point, but
I'd like to, I'll hold any discussion till I'd like any public comment first.
Okay. Can I go ahead and see if there's anybody out there that wants to weigh in on this before we move forward? You guys okay? Bob?
Yes, good.
Okay. All right, Kristen, do your thing.
Okay, members of the audience, if you would please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. President Rentz, I see Ms. Terry Dason from the chamber has raised her hand.
Bring her in.
Welcome, Terry.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, President Rentz and Council. I have to say that I have received hundreds of compliments about the West Elm Business District with the lighting, especially with the holiday lighting. And I just want to compliment all of you for creating the atmosphere that makes our village look so beautiful and so safe, with everyone being able to see where they're walking. And I've never heard a negative comment, just to let you know. And I've gotten a lot of compliments from our businesses and our residents that are always walking around if you've noticed, a lot of people are walking around West Elm these days because it is so open and welcoming. So I am enjoying seeing what is going to happen with the restaurant corners. I think that will always be able to help us maintain restaurants in those two corners, which will keep our village looking so welcoming and inviting with restaurants and food providers. And I like the idea of all these trees here too. I'm on the committee for Go Green Winnetka, and I know that they will be pleased when they see the trees. So I think you've done another excellent job, and I look forward to seeing the transformation. And that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Terry. Kristen?
So are there any other members of the audience that would like to raise their hand and speak now? Seeing none, President Rintz, we did receive one written comment in advance of the meeting. Would you like me to read that comment?
This is the time to do that.
Okay. Regarding the new streetscape plan on Lincoln Avenue to be discussed at the January 19th, 2021 meeting, my concern is with the planned change for the sidewalk corner on the northwest corner, where the past renovation had installed the bricks with family names of those who contributed to the previous development. This tribute is cherished by those who participated in the program. Many families bought bricks for every member, and in some cases for their pet cats and dogs. Many have added to this list since the initial installation. One can always observe residents and former residents coming back to, in quotes, visit their bricks. This successful program was testament to the generosity and love of their village. I would urge your discussion to include the saving of these bricks by using them in your plan or relocating them to a nearby area in exactly the same order as they are now, as a great deal of effort was made to keep families together. Note that the west side has its installation intact on the south side of Elm Street, just west of the Dock Mine Muck corner. Having been the coordinator of the past Elm Street project, I would be happy to meet with you regarding the preservation and display of these commemorative bricks. Regards, Betty Skalski.
Awesome. Jody, can you speak to the bricks? Because I know we've had a lot of conversations on this, and I'd like council for you to hear what where everything kind of went.
Yeah,
With
thank
respect to
you.
safety.
And we appreciate that comment. Can everybody see this image that I've got on my screen of the bricks? So this is a sort of so we've looked at all of these very closely. There's over 1,000 bricks, and they're all engraved precast concrete bricks. They're not clay bricks. So the ones that have yellow boxes on them are bricks that are severely damaged and crumbling in some cases. There's not a lot of them, but it's a material that isn't very long lasting. So what we've done is we've documented all of these, and you can see the pages and pages of names here. We've documented them all, and the plan is to have the contractor carefully remove and palletize the bricks and deliver them to the village hall. And then what we're planning to do is to have a tastefully designed sign panel or two that would alphabetize all of these and put them in a place that people can still come and read them, but it will be much more durable. It won't be crumbling as some of the bricks are today. I should mention too, while I'm talking about this, at the bottom of the screen, there are also cast bronze plaques, and these are intended to be safely removed and put back into the streetscape, as they are a very durable material. But I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Any other questions on bricks?
Well, Jody, where exactly are we, or maybe Rob can answer this, where would we put this display?
So the display, preliminarily, we've been talking about it being located outside of the corridor on the south of Elm Street, but we haven't picked an exact location yet. but it would be a post-mounted sign type panel,
South on Elm Street.
south of Elm Street.
South of,
It'd be the southwest corner area where we would have, I think that's the area we were targeting.
okay, over by the bus stop or whatever.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other solution for that other than, because you're right, they're looking pretty rough and they're getting worse and worse. And so I think that's actually a somewhat elegant solution to try and, because they're not great shape right now. So
And
I
they're
think it's-
deteriorating and they're starting to pop.
I think it's a good solution.
You mean my
So-
$200 donation to get my daughter's names on that is not eternal and infinite?
Maybe your pet's name.
I thought I could buy eternal life with a couple of bricks. So
It's not just names, there's phrases, there's organization names, there's a whole host of interesting things. But I would say that the way that we're laying out this sign panel is that we're doing it in a way that we hope it'll be easier for people to find their loved ones' names because they'll be alphabetized.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Chris,
So Jody, you mentioned you're gonna bring these back to the village hall. What is the intent to do with them?
If somebody wanted to come pick up if Chris wanted to bring his daughter's paver to her, they could do that.
So Chris will deliver all of them wherever they belong?
I vote yes.
personally, I'll be happy to. I'll just load them in the back of my truck and drive them around.
Chris,
Great, thanks.
how do your daughters feel, Chris, about you choosing cast cement over bronze for them?
I just wrote the check. I didn't know what I was buying.
All right, thank you.
But yeah, we can either, have an opportunity for people to come and get them. Betty offered to somehow curate them, and maybe we can talk to her a little bit. Rob, maybe you could have somebody on staff follow up with Betty and see what her thoughts are, and maybe we could do something cool with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, is that public comment? Is there anybody else out there, Kristen?
There are no other raised hands in the audience, President Rentz, and no other written comments.
Awesome. All right, we can bring it back for deliberation. So Andy, I know you were all hot to trot before, so I'll give you the lead here.
Yeah, thank you all for taking the extra time. The tours were very helpful. I really appreciate the work you put into thinking through the tree issue, and you're playing a little bit of a game of Jenga in terms of where the lights can go and without impacting the trees and the photomet, making sure the lighting is right. I love the plan. Candidly, I love what we've got on West Elm. I also have not heard anything negative other than on this council. In fact, I hear a lot of very positive things. Just on a personal note, every single night, my wife and I go for a walk after dinner. We've been doing that since the beginning of the pandemic. And it reminds me of the good old days when we lived in Lakeview and you could walk around and see things. And we do. We have a loop. We go from our house, we go up Elm Street, we go down past Teresa's store, past Telco, then we double back, we go up to Fred's and we walk up. And the lighting makes a huge difference. We see other people that are routine walkers out at night. It used to be just kind of, Deadsville out there. So I really like the plan. I do understand it's much brighter than what we've probably been accustomed to in the village. I happen to like that. So I really like the plan. I'm really excited to see this thing move forward. So don't have much more to say than that, other than just, really good work and thank you.
Sorry, guys. I was wondering why nobody was responding. Other thoughts? Wow. I guess not. I will throw in some thoughts. I'll echo some. I talk to a lot of people in this town, And I make myself really available, and people come up to me all the time and have just been wildly in favor of what we've been doing down there. And I get more thumbs up on the streetscape project than anything else we're doing in this community right now, including stormwater. You know, a lot of the newer families that are moving into this community see what we're doing, and it becomes another value add to move to Winnetka, to see a fresh, clean, well-designed, thoughtful downtown really has been a very positive thing. And I've got 4 young families that just live right around me here that have moved in all this summer. And, you know, Rob, I've really tried to get my head around your concerns of, and I heard you the first time, the difference between a village and a city or something like that. But, you know, I have to be honest, I've really tried hard to see where you're coming from, both on the lighting and on the overall tone. And I just, you know, regretfully, I just can't get there. I think it's very typical of suburban locations, and I think the quality of the elements are incomparable. I mean, I went up to Lake Forest this weekend and prepping for this meeting to look again, and I got to tell you, we are going to be setting the gold standard for the North Shore when we complete this project. Lake Forest is looking tired, it's looking beat up, it's looking used, and they're going to have to be dealing with the same thing in very short order. And you know, they're starting to lose some of their retail environment, just like we are. So I like the idea that we're at a good place and time to be doing this, although 10 years ago I might not have said that. But I think this is a real positive add, and I think we've been very judicious with how we've done it. You know, you go up to Glencoe, there's paver brick everywhere. If you want to blow a budget, if you want to blow our budget, look at sidewalk pavers. The pavement alone could be 6 times as much if we went to all brick. You know, we made the decision to be a little bit more austere and go with concrete. It maintains better. And so some of the things we've done to save money really don't lessen the quality at all. And I am just so pleased with the way the community has reacted to this, and even more so since the holiday lights have gone up. Andy, I, like you, I walk every night, and now that I have a little puppy that can do the mileage, we walk uptown every night. And I do stupid things like sit on the stone wall when I'm the only person at the intersection and just enjoy it. It's a cool thing, and I think what's happening is by doing this, we're also supporting the value of our individual investments in our home, because as these communities begin to turn over, more and more people from the city are coming up and looking and making, do I want to live in Evanston? Do I want to live in Wilmette? Do I want to live in Winnetka and Glencoe? And I think we're really starting to set ourselves apart in a lot of ways. And this is just one of the more visible aspects of that. So anyway, thanks for the great conversation.
Chris, I just want to make sure I'm real clear, as that's why I thought I started this discussion out about how important this is to continue to do it right now. Let's get this going. I am in full favor of it. This is an aesthetic discussion, and that's why I reflect what I've learned. If everyone's okay with this, I'm getting this done is far more important than whether there's too many bollards, although I think there are. But really, what our general purpose is, and it's a huge win for the village. I agree.
And I would say, you know, given the consternation about the bollards, that Jody, you know, I'd really like you to take a look and maybe look at 2 or 3 alternatives in the next week or so. So if there is a different way to skin the cat, we can circulate it to council and get a sense of it. I initially thought there was a lot of bollards there, but my mind keeps going back to Chestnut and Elm and just how compelling that space is now, that I've kind of turned around on the less is more concept. So yes, Rob, I agree.
Okay.
So I got a bunch of stuff here. This one. So Rob Bahan, sorry to interrupt you, but it's time to go to work again.
Oh, I was here. I wasn't going anywhere. I hear every word, trust me.
Okay, look at, I have something here that says we're directing staff to develop a contract proposal.
So essentially, we're just asking for a motion to confirm that staff can proceed with developing the contract, the Phase 3 streetscape project, to move that forward and bring back the water main on the 2nd and the streetscape contract on the 16th. And then the item after this is some long lead items that we'd like to get approval for.
Okay, so this first one says, may I have a motion to direct staff to develop a new contract proposal for the Phase 3 streetscape project? I guess that would be with ALAM.
Yes, sir.
And to move forward with procurement of critical items with long lead times, subject to final council approval.
Yep.
So that was I need a motion for that.
Make that motion.
I'll second it, but I have a question.
Okay, we can open it for conversation right now.
Discussion.
Part of your motion was to approve the long lead items. Is there any kind of presentation on that, what we're approving?
The lights.
Yeah, but there was no cost or anything, just whatever it is now?
No, don't bring it back.
Okay, okay, great, thank you.
No, but the lights and the grates, John, they've got to cast those angles into the sidewalk, and they missed it on the first phase, and
Yeah.
it didn't
No
work
problem,
out.
no problem, just want to make sure there's no discussion about it or anything.
And Jim can speak. I mean, in the staff report, we mentioned that in totality, we're within budget. I believe $45,000 to $50,000 under budget. That includes everything. And that's at about, we priced this out to at least 90% level at this point, and we feel very confident that once we finalize the contract with ALAMP, we'll be within budget.
And that's
Thank you.
before the grant.
Yes.
That's before the grant. Yep.
Okay.
So
I
I'm sorry. go ahead.
I have a motion and a second.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
Trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
Motion carries. I'm really sorry, guys. I do not understand what you gave me here.
It's okay. We're basically getting consensus from council to move forward with bringing back those big items for approval, the water main and the overall streetscape project. And then the next item is the purchase of the pedestrian lighting and banner attachments, because that is a long lead item, and we'd like to get authorization tonight so that we can get that order made. Jim, is there anything else you want to add to that next item?
No. So basically, this is a similar item as we did as for part of Phase 1 and Phase 2. It has a long lead time. These are the pedestrian lights, the Sternberg, the lower pedestrian lights, and there are banner attachments that come with it. And this also includes, there's a single source provider for Sternberg products, which includes the LED bollards and the Sternberg poles with the banner attachments and banner attachments for the west side as well. So we can start to initiate that program. The proposal in front of you for that is for those items, the Sternberg lights, the LED bollards, and the banner attachments. They just have a long lead time to it.
Now, is that
That is a resolution R1221.
so even though we just said that that you can move forward with procurement of critical items with long lead times, now we're coming back and firming that up. Is that what's going on here?
Yes, and then there'll be some other other long lead items coming in February with the overall contract.
Understand what's going on here? Okay. I really don't, but I'll ask for this motion. Resolution number R12, 2021, which is the purchase of pedestrian lighting and banner attachments. This is for adoption. May I have a motion to adopt resolution number R12, 2021?
So
So
moved.
moved.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Sure. Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
Trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. I guess I still don't understand the difference, but we're through it, so that's all that matters. Okay, moving forward then, item 11, appointments, there are none. However, we have several open slots coming up on the zoning board. And, you know, I've been doing some recruiting, but I would also be more than willing to hear from all the council members if you have people that you think might make good appointees for the ZBA particularly. That's a really important slot, and as you know, we like people that are very logical and linear in their thinking, because that's what ZBA does, right? I mean, it's the laws. So I put 3 members on there. They all seem to be performing really well, but I am going to have 2 slots open really soon. So any help you guys can give me with that, I'd really appreciate.
Chris, who's in the zoning board right now? It's a total of 5?
No, there's 6 on there'll be a total of 7, but I'm losing 2. I lost 1 and I'm going to lose another one.
All right.
So you can just call me on that or shoot me an email. That's great. Certainly these are appointments that merit a lot of discussion. So, but I'm just asking for help because my original bench is running a little thin right now. So anyway, that'll be coming soon. And item 12 is closed session. There is no closed session this evening. However, we will be having one
Thursday.
The day after tomorrow.
Correct.
Gotcha. We'll be having one Thursday. Thank you for reminding me, Rob.
Yeah, I was listening.
Okay. That's all we got for this evening. So absent anything else, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Kripe.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Appreciate your
council.
help, and we'll talk to you later.
Everybody.
Yep.